and welcome to the first ever channel update for Everything in Us. Yeah, a lot of things are happening for the show. A lot of changes are coming for all three shows. So I figured I needed to put this up here and to at least let you know what's coming, what's happening, so forth and so forth. So first off, if you listened to the last episode of Anime and Us, you know that was the last episode of Anime and Us. I'm recording this literally right after I'm recording that, and if you listen to that, you know that my co-host on that show, Sean, can't do this podcast anymore. Life takes over, and you have to do what you got to do. So he had to sacrifice being able to do this so that he can live life. Essentially, it happens. He's okay. Everything's fine. Anime and Us. I don't know what I'm gonna do with the show. Maybe a new co-host. Maybe a new format. It's a lot of work. Anime and Us. It is essentially putting a whole day's work into watching it, because we do an anime every 1 or 2 weeks, and an anime, it takes 4 to 8 hours to watch. So I still haven't figured out what we're gonna do with it. I'm sure I'll figure out something, and it'll come back in some form. It's just gonna be different than what it was. But, you know, all things come to an end and all that. So, well, what are you going to do, right? Anyway, moving on. I got some news for Movies and Us. Me and Marcus do Movies and Us. There's only one thing of note, really, in this one is that I don't have the exact episode number, but we record a bunch of those ahead of time because they take so long to edit, because sometimes we do a 3-hour podcast going through that movie beat by beat, and so it's got to be edited, and the editing process takes forever. If you ever tried to edit a 3-hour podcast, it's not fun, especially the way Marcus and I do the podcasts. So with that being said, we're changing the format of the show. Right now, as the at the time of this announcement goes up, I had just released Captain America First Avenger. We had recorded up to, at this point, The Wolverine. So I don't know how long and how many episodes is between that. It's a bunch, though. So you still got a bunch in the same format. But with that, we're changing the format. We're not going to be going beat by beat anymore on Movies and Us, because it just takes so long to get through it. And for Marcus's sake, in the editing process, it'd be much easier on him. And two, I mean, if you haven't watched a movie by now, I mean, it's not like we're covering new movies that are like coming out every week, and you're coming to us to see if you want to go watch it or not. I mean, and even if that's why you came to us, you don't want to listen to this kind of review anyway, because it's beat by beat. We spoil the whole movie. And if we're not spoiling the whole movie, we're just telling you what's happening in the movie. So we're going to cut back on that. We're still going to have the first half of the thing, whereas we go through all the stuff and things, but the actual movie review stuff, we're not going to go beat by beat anymore. We're gonna do it varies between episode to episode, but maybe act by act sometimes. Sometimes we're just gonna summarize different things and say what we liked and we don't like. It's just gonna cut down the length of the video, and sometimes it's good to have a long episode of a podcast, like if you're at work or something, to distract you. But most people, I mean, if you're just listening to it here and there, just to like, you don't need a 3-hour podcast a lot of the time. Maybe, I don't know. You tell me. Tell me. Maybe I'm wrong. But we're still going to do this format at the very least for Marcus's sake in that one. On that same note, moving over to Comics and Us, there is a bunch of things happening with Comics and Us. First things first, changing the format on that one too. For the Batman issues in particular, or at least in the incarnation of the Batman comics that are actually like are happening in the 40s and 50s, where there's 4 issues of Batman in each one, and it's like 70 pages, and it takes us over 2 hours to cover the entire thing. Yeah, we're cutting that down too. We're not changing the format, so to speak. We're actually gonna just devote an episode to each Batman story instead of covering them all in one. We're gonna give them each episode its own, each comic its own episode. That way we can focus on, give the story the focus it deserves. Because by the time we get to that third or fourth story, we're kind of petering out at that point. It's like, and the stories kind of deserve more of a focus than that, especially as the way I see these things. I kind of doing it for my own personal historical record here. So, and I just don't feel like it. And plus, I'm the one editing this podcast, the Comics and Us podcast, and it's so hard every third week to do a 3-hour or a 2-hour edit a 2-hour podcast on top of another 2 hours to edit together the YouTube version, and then edit together the Anime and Us podcast and the YouTube version, which obviously that's not a null and void as of this week, but still it's a lot of work. So each episode, it's honestly, it's done. The change isn't going to happen for a while. I think we got 3 more Batmans before that change happens, and there's a bunch of comics in between on that too, but I could be wrong on the number with that one. Other news, we also have been recording other types of shows for Comics and Us. We got some times where Chris or Lumpy can't do it, so we got some podcast episodes where it's just going to be me and Chris, and then me and Lumpy covering not Batman, covering different variety of things. Me and Chris in particular have something that people might want to listen to. That's going to be pretty cool coming up. And also, we've started recording another show for Comics and Us that we've been recording as we record the Comics and Us, which is going to start at the beginning of next year. The first week of every month of next year, there's going to be a different show from the main show that curious to see what you guys, people's internet, if you're interested in it or not. And this is going to be a year-long experiment. I mean, in any case, I hope you like it because it's fun, but there's a lot of annoyance that comes with it. So, you'll know what I mean when we get to it. But yeah, that's it. I think that's all I need to talk about. I'm not gonna edit this, so it's going up as I do this because it's just an announcement. But yeah, thanks for all your help and listening and support and everything else. I would plug the shows, but honestly, we really have no social media. You can check us out over on Twitter. I'm not calling it the other thing because it's Twitter. If you want, we have a Twitter account where I announce everything, but mostly just check us out on, your local podcasts thing. We're on all of them. Everything in Us, Comics in Us has its own channel. YouTube is seems to be more popular for our podcast for some reason than the actual audio version. So check us out on YouTube too. Everything in Us. Back to Twitter. Everything in Us podcast. Everything in Us podcasts. You also, if you want, can email us at everythinginuspodcasts@gmail.com. I don't have an actual business one because this is all Seated for Pants and we don't get paid for anything. But, we enjoyed this hobby of ours, and yeah. That's all the plugs I have. Yeah. So, thanks. Bye.